Well, here we are with another episode of Talk to the Doctor with my friend Kyle Olandt. Early spring, it's beautiful outside, so I know we want to get to this and get outdoors and have some fun in this day. But Kyle, thanks for coming by.
Appreciate you guys having me. Thanks so much, man.
You're welcome. So, I want to talk about how we met. Let's just say I had shoulder surgery. I think it was like 3 years ago.
Yep.
And I walk in kind of a sports rehab clinic, and who do I meet?
Right.
Awesome. So that's where kind of I met you. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was working at an outpatient clinic, 3.5 years ago, roughly 4 years.
Yeah.
You came in, jacked as ever. You had a diagnosis of end-stage arthritis, right? We were trying to figure out a way to get your shoulder moving better without having surgery or avoiding another one or avoiding a shoulder replacement, which is the goal because you do not want a shoulder replacement at the time.
Shoulder replacement scares me for so many reasons.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's a massive surgery. You're taking the bone off of one joint, recalibrating it, resurfacing it. And typically the outcomes to get back to the lifestyle you wanted to get to are tough.
Yeah.
And so it totally makes sense that you would not want to go through that process.
Yeah.
But yeah, you and I went after it for a solid 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than they gave me the script for. Like, I think I was coming in there for what would have been a 3-month gig.
Yeah.
And then I kept going. And then the administrator was like, well, your time is, And I'm like, no. I'll pay out of my own pocket, whatever. I just want to keep coming.
Yeah.
A lot because I met you and I thought, you just really had a quality approach and I dig your style. And
Appreciate that, man.
yeah, we just had good raps. But I mean, we were doing good work. You know?
Yeah.
And I could even see when I went in there that it was like, nothing against everyone there because they're all cool and whatever. But like you were holding that place up in my eyes in a lot of ways. A lot of people I could tell were coming there kind of requesting. You were, it was like, so it was an awesome time for me, but talking more about that from a physio side.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. Thanks so much for saying those things. Every therapist or doctor when they graduate school should go work at a high volume clinic, I think, because they're going to get the reps, they're going to get the volume, they're going to see a wide variety of people. And I'm very thankful for my time there because I just got to see 20 to 30 people a day.
Great amount of experience coming in.
Incredible amount of people, volume, just seeing people through their plan of care, right, from start to the finish. And that gives you a really solid foundation of what to look for when you start your own practice one day, or you want to branch on your own, or you want to create your own business. So, it's not the dream setting to see 30 patients a day. But when you look at it from a long-term perspective, it's like, well, that's really necessary to build yourself as a clinician.
Sure.
To see that volume. Just like any other business, you want a ton of experience before you branch on your own or do your own thing. The last thing you want is someone to see for the first time and you have no idea what you're doing. It's a great way to ruin your reputation and stop a business from growing beforehand.
Sure. That makes nothing but sense. And like you said, in any field, really. But I mean, especially with dealing with humans' broken parts.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, dude. It's crazy how multifactorial the rehab process is. I mean, like, you got the psychosomatic side of it. You have the emotional connection. You got the overall systemic side. Like, what's their actual health like?
Yes.
Like, people come and smoke tons of cigarettes, but they look healthy, but they're not healing very well because they're influxing their body with toxins and horrible things.
Their body's always fighting toxins, so it can't really settle into healing.
Right. They're always in this inflammatory phase of healing. And I got a couple of guys right now with knee replacements that have mass amounts of swelling, and they're like, oh, my knee's not getting better. What the hell's going on? I'm doing everything right. And find out you're smoking a pack a day.
Oh my God.
You're not sleeping very well, and your diet and hydration's poor.
Yeah.
So it's like, how are you going to get well on one body part when you're systemically not well?
They haven't really created an environment for healing in their body.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And a lot of people think, oh, just come to you, heal me.
Right.
But they have to participate in the nutrition and the rest, like you mentioned. And, obviously not smoking and drinking. I mean, those are the first things on a form like that.
Right.
Do you smoke? Do you drink? People wonder why they ask that. But it's like, well, hello.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I really like that, we talk about, in a sense, the combination, like you mentioned, all these factors that have to do with healing.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the biggest challenge I have in my field is people come in with a specific impairment or a body region that hurts. And we're totally neglecting the whole system. And I think that's where physical therapy is shifting towards, is like, let's look at your lifestyle factors, your overall health to influence your ability to get better overall. And so that's interesting to me because it's shifting our field into more of looking at stem cells, looking at peptide therapies, or looking at regenerative medicine, integrating it into our profession.
You hear a lot about that, but really, I hear a lot about it. I know it's out there, but I think mass-wise, people don't know a lot about peptides.
Yeah.
They've heard something about stem cells. And what was the other one you mentioned?
Regenerative medicine. So like NAD plus, or you have these companies called Hydration Room, or
Yes.
or all these little pop-up shops that are
Sure.
that are coming up, physician-owned places that hire nurse practitioners or nurses to basically hook people up to IVs.
Yes.
And the IVs intentionally are supposed to have high nutrients or basically things that hack your DNA to reduce aging.
Nice.
So integrating that into our field, I think, is the coolest thing right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
State of the art, cutting edge moment when you can bring physio together with, internal. What I explained, something along the lines of like hydration room kind of stuff, a place that I've been at a few times.
Sure.
I describe it to people as you have basically somewhere between, tell me if I'm wrong, what you know about this. You have a normal absorption rate of somewhere around 15 to 20% max of your nutrients. Say, for instance, if you took in protein or vitamins or whatever, your absorption rate. However, there's a moment after intense training where there's a small little window somewhere in the half hour to 40-minute range, and every minute less during that time. So as quick as possible after you're completely spent, not if you're just barely exercising, but I mean, if you really feel like spent, whatever it was, it could be lifting weights, swimming, running, could be climbing ropes, whatever, but whatever it is, that playing a game, football, you have a 30 to 40-minute window where your absorption rate doubles, literally, where it comes up into the more 30%-ish, maybe 35%. I think the numbers vary per individual, but there's a little window where your absorption of your nutrients is increased. I myself try to use my recovery nutrients in that window so that I can feed myself. Now, this is what I think about hydration room type of stuff, IV nutrients. I tell people it's like a waterfall of nutrients in your veins. It's basically like it's pure absorption. So you're not 15 or 20 or 30%. It's kind of expensive, but what you're getting out of it is a lot of nutrients.
So, the bioavailability is what kind of think you're referencing, is how bioavailable are these nutrients to get into our body.
The absorption.
Exactly. So like you look at glucosamine or chondroitin, which are supplements, you go to Costco, like look at joint health.
Oh my God.
Help your arthritis, since chondroitin and glucosamine. But the bioavailability in the gut lining is very poor.
Very limited.
So you're basically peeing those things out. It's expensive.
Expensive piss.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
And so the metabolic window, which is what you were addressing before, which is how fast you want to get those protein supplements in, or creatine, or whatever the substrate is you're trying to get into your body after exercise, is essentially a function of your insulin sensitivity. So when you work out, your insulin sensitivity increases. In other words, your muscle's ability to pull nutrients out of the bloodstream into the cells.
Interesting.
And it turns out that theory was researched for a long period of time. The thought used to be you have to eat protein within 45 minutes to an hour of working out. It turns out now, which I learned
After they thought? Okay.
They used to think that you have to increase your protein uptake within 45 minutes to an hour after working out, or else you basically threw the workout away.
Okay.
There's a commercial with pro athletes, they have like chocolate milk, and like
Yeah.
they work out and like they drink and like, oh, now I'm done.
Done, yeah.
It's like you're not. Then well, it turns out the overall protein intake throughout the course of a day is what's the main factor for protein
For
synthesis and growth,
bioavailability?
and for muscle growth.
Okay.
So if you're in a protein deficit overall,
by
the end of the day, you're probably not going to create muscle growth.
interesting.
But if you're in a protein surplus, you will, because most of the muscle growth and muscle protein growth happens when you're sleeping. So
Okay.
in grad school, I learned that within 45 minutes, you have to eat this. You better. Like, put a protein shake in your bag.
Boom.
But the newest research coming out within the last couple of years has shown that it actually is more about a total volume of nutrients.
Throughout the day,
Correct.
which is what, like, say, for instance, like every 3 hours, your protein intake, because isn't it somewhere in that window?
It could be a time intake, or it could just be an overall, like, let's just say total grams of protein at the end of the day per body weight.
But I mean, if you like these people right now that are doing this like fasting and intermittent, and all of a sudden they eat a bunch later. I mean, is there something to be said for there's only a certain amount of absorption per hour? I know that's true of vitamin C, for instance.
Yeah.
But with protein, can you literally just put in 100 grams at once and think you're going to get the juice out of that?
I think that's a better question. I don't think that's true. I think that you're going to get a percentage of uptake, and then your kidneys and everything else will filtrate the rest.
That's what I thought.
So yeah, you're right. You can't eat 300 grams of protein and expect all of that to be absorbed by their body.
So with wanting total protein availability in your body or bioavailability, wouldn't it be the best solution to try to really be on track?
Yeah.
I know people that have trained to like compete for physical fitness type stuff.
Sure.
They're really on a tight track of like every 3 hours they eat so much rice and so much protein and so much vegetables, like a machine.
Yeah.
And after a while, you're going, man, that is working.
Totally.
I mean, you really notice what they're doing, but they are not slight on protein.
Right.
But they're just taking it in methodically every 3 hours, and they literally wake up in the middle of the night or in that other 3 hours and eat then too.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what I believe about that. But.
I think there's so many different thought processes and like methods for those type of things. I think it's what fits best for the person at the end of the day. And I think the people who work out like yourself, I mean, you're quite lean right now, which holy moly, dude. With those veins.
Okay.
You probably have a high metabolic, basically basic metabolic rate. Basic metabolic rate is your caloric expenditure at rest. So you may be burning 110 calories at rest. Somebody else may be burning 60. So you actually need to eat more periodically throughout the day to maintain muscle.
Well, I've always had a lot of I'm just really hungry. Like I've always been really hungry.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, I just always have this like voracious appetite, which I think is a great thing. I mean, it wasn't great on my parents, the cost, but I'm saying even for me, I remember as a little kid, me and my best friend Danny Boy, we were like, I don't know, 11 or 12, and we saw my mom. We were cruising down the street, and I was like, okay, hey mom, me and Danny Boy were gonna get our own apartment. And my mom looks at me, goes, really? I mean, we're literally like 11 or 12 years old. She looks, she looks at us, goes, really? And I go, yeah. And she goes, who's gonna pay for the food? And it literally was the first time in my life I put the idea together that food, money, job, the whole thing, because I was just horse eating, just okay. So then I went and I looked at Danny Boy and we both looked at each other and went, and then I looked at my mom and go, Mom, we're gonna hold off on that for a little while.
Smart decision, yeah, right.
Because really, at the end of the day, I mean, athletically speaking, feeding is such a big part. But if you have a natural hunger, because I know people that really aren't that hungry, they're very athletic, they have to talk themselves into eating.
Right.
And it's like, wow, it's just so, it really comes to what you're saying about each individual. And I really dislike the idea that some people, whatever topic you're talking about, that a one size fits all situation, I don't believe in it on any level. Right. I don't believe in that. Like people that like kind of want to be generalized about like racist, those people are, no, I'm telling people all the time, like, no, you can't do that. Like people are individuals in every way, So with that, I mean, big time, like your metabolism, your genetic background, your, whatever.
And it's funny you bring up the genetics. The genetic thing is, I think, really interesting too. There's these companies that are coming out with genetic tests that show you what foods are best for you. In other words, if you have an allergy to gluten, or if you have an allergy to dairy products, or you get all these baseline data from a blood sample.
Oh my gosh.
And it shows you what to avoid. And it turns out those things have influence on your healing factors. They have influence on your mood. They have influence on your sleep, like your sex drive, everything.
Everything.
So it just makes it more so individual based. Like medicine should be, it's not put people in a box. It's like, how do we take that person out of the box to fit their needs?
Oh my gosh. That's just that kind of stuff. Like I'm so into that kind of thing. Recently, I give blood every 2 months, just as a thing to do for
like you donate
society.
Blood?
I donate blood every 2 months,
okay,
literally.
Wow.
Initially, I did it because I just wanted to be that guy that helped, But then it came to my awareness that I have a somewhat of a uncommon blood type. I mean, it's it's not the most uncommon, but I have B positive blood type.
Okay.
From what I understand, is not the most common, but not totally just one of a kind. And so that made it even more valuable to them. They're so stoked when I give it. But also, from what I understand, it really gives quite a bit of health benefits to me individually. So as a result of that, I started looking into eating for B positive blood type. It just dawned on me one day. I went, why don't I check that out?
Yeah.
So I've had all this mysteries, like certain things that just don't agree with me forever. Like I cannot drink coffee.
Really?
It doesn't work. It makes me go, it just is totally, I can't do it.
Like a jittery, like
oh my God,
stomach
it makes
pain.
my teeth ache.
Oh, wow.
Like you can't believe it. It makes my heart palpitate.
Yeah.
It makes me nervous and just completely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like sweat. Like it's, I feel like
it's systemic reaction to it. Like
super systemic reaction all my life.
Wow.
Sugar does that to me.
Okay.
I haven't had pork in almost 50 years. I just think it's gross.
I respect that, actually.
It's just gross.
Pork is a bad.
What happened is I was a teenager and we went to a pig farm.
Oh.
And I saw how pigs eat and live in that pen. And I literally that day said, I will never eat that animal again.
Yeah.
It's not a religious thing. It's nothing more than me seeing them in their way and went, oh, I can't eat. That's not food to me.
Yeah.
And then later it became clear to me in so many different paths of life that, it's questionable as a source. Okay.
Yeah.
It's very high salt as another thing that's very concerning. And the pork fat is extremely not soluble in our bodies. It just really coagulates.
Oh, wow.
Really bad.
Yeah.
So anyways.
It's also the highest form of animal that has parasites.
Yes.
Which is a
you
huge.
better cook the crap out of that if you eat it.
Dude, that's
right?
the one thing that's crazy to me that we don't talk about in America is parasite cleanses.
Okay.
We are one of the only few, if not the only developed country that doesn't do parasitic cleanses biannually, two times a year. If you go to Brazil, if you go to South America countries, they do a parasite cleanse 2 times a year. Every 6 months, they all take a medication called Ayurveda or a variation of this. It's called an antihelmintic drug. It basically gets rid of parasites globally. So it's not specific to one parasite per se, but it's supposed to get rid of everything. Ivermectin actually works similarly, which actually might be why people who take ivermectin heal and feel better is because we probably have a shit ton of parasitic infections in our body.
I don't think I've ever done a parasitic cleanse.
That's what I'm saying. Americans don't do it, but you think our water or like our sanitation processes are that much better than other countries?
Well, they are in some ways.
For sure,
I mean,
better
you
than
go to some places
the streets of
where
India.
it's like, woo.
Streets of India, you're cooking on the ground. That's one thing. That's one extreme. Right? Well, you've seen those videos of these guys.
Even in Mexico, right across the border. I mean, you cross over to Tijuana.
There's
it's stinky.
There's some sketchy shit for sure.
Yeah.
But in that in between zone, right?
Yes.
Like and I think there's some research that nowadays that come out that looks at cancer being caused by parasites, and almost all diseases has a parasitic origin.
A connection to a parasite.
Like the parasite causes these causes of disease.
Wow.
Like there's people that cured themselves of cancer with radioablation because the radioablation frequency kills parasites specifically.
And then their cancer went away?
Yeah. Because cancer is a mutation of cells, right? And a lot of times that's a function of not having the nutrients in the cell, or it's not having the right homeostatic environment of the cell. And that could be influenced by parasites that you would never know.
Amazing information dropping on this episode of Talk to the Doctor, ladies and gentlemen, here with Kyle Olandt. Really cool stuff, man. I got to say, super inspired. I'd like to be taking some notes about a lot of this stuff, but I'm so clicked into, getting it going. So maybe we'll, after the show, we'll be able to do that. And maybe even for our guests, we'll be able to, put a little info out there about some of this stuff specifically. Yeah. So let's jump forward. What's the latest with you? What you got a new project I hear? What's going on with you?
So I started my own company. I partnered with a guy that I have been speaking to for the last maybe a year and a half about how to bring his model down to South County. So his model of physical therapy is one-on-one sports performance and high-level rehab.
I like the one-on-one.
It's a lot different. Like traditionally, you would go to a clinic and you work with 3 people an hour.
It's
chaos. You can't really give high-quality care. You can't really do the things you want to do. You're running around like a madman.
Plus, people are, like you said, they're individuals.
Yep, exactly. So the movement in healthcare is moving more towards like a boutique environment. Like people in this environment want to pay for a high level of care rather than get subsidized to some shitty place.
Sure.
Especially
and when you say this environment, do you mean down here in South Orange County?
South Orange County,
probably
a little more affluent.
There's a decent amount of, it's not Beverly Hills, but it's not Santa Ana.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And people are taking care of their bodies. There's this movement there. We should start preventatively looking at our health rather than post something happens.
I like it.
And so I started a business in Dana Point. It's on PCH and Golden Lantern. It's a high-end boutique one-on-one rehab and sports performance. And so we see a blend between pro athletes, post-operative conditions, like if you had a shoulder surgery, and then we have a group training aspect of it. So what I saw was all these youth kids were getting these overuse injuries in their elbow and their shoulder and their knees.
Gosh.
Because of the abundance of volume they're doing in their sport.
That young, and they're already coming in hot on
12, 13, 15 years old, like with significant growth plate problems because they're trying to keep up with this whole methodology that we need to be pro athletes at 12 years old.
But the bodies aren't developed enough yet.
Exactly. So they can't withstand the stress that the sports are giving them anatomically. And so my thought was maybe we can create a training subscription service to where get ahead of that by creating a capacity in the tissues to withstand the forces that are giving them in the sport.
And that's the model that you built your new business around?
Exactly, yeah. So we just expanded into another 1,500 square feet. So the whole thing is about 3,000 square feet. It's really high-end equipment. It's really designed to where you can do group training and have one-on-one care at the same time.
And this is your spot.
Yeah.
So you broke away from where I went originally, and you were part of a team,
right?
One of the practitioners, and then now you've got your own spot. Well, congratulations to you.
Thank you, man. It's been a grind, but I'm very grateful and psyched to where we are now at the game.
Well, I think you have a lot to offer. I know for a fact working with you was a real benefit when I went to where I originally met you, but now where you're at your own spot, I know you'll be able to take it to a whole nother level because you kind of have you get to explore where you're at.
You can make changes for yourself. Like you can order the right equipment you want. You can design the treatment plan based upon how you want to do it because you're your own boss.
Yeah.
And I think in healthcare, the best thing to do is not be judged by another healthcare practitioner telling you what to do, is to intuitively look at the person and treat them how you think they should be treated, which only happens when you have your own thing.
I agree with that. As a trainer myself, not so much on the therapy side at all, but just more on the performance side, every single person that I've ever dealt with, I really kind of assess them individually and really find where their weaknesses and strengths are initially to try to figure out what's the game plan.
Right.
I always ask people, like, what's your goal? What are you trying to achieve, right? If someone comes to me and says, I just want to lose weight, I'm like, I'm not your guy, right? Just go to the gym, get on the stationary bike, eat better, blah, blah, blah. That's just... But if someone comes to me and says, I'm a pro surfer, I'm gassing out in the finals, and I need to have more endurability, but I still need my explosive strength, I still need to recover, I need all these things, and I'm really, we surf multiple heats a day, and I need explosion in that period, then I know what the goal is. If someone comes to me and they're, a marathon runner, I mean, there's so many, a lot of martial arts and surfers come to me. So the main people I've dealt with, but those are specific types of activities, sports that require, I think, a certain approach. But then again, each individual. So for you, what you're doing is taking that and really blowing the roof off, I think, and really be able to look at the individual and design a program that will prevent injury.
Right.
Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Yeah. So we invested in some equipment that does force dynamometry. Force dynamometry is basically you put somebody in a position specific to the shoulder or the elbow or the hip, or whatever muscle you want to test. You have them contract against the machine we have, which then gives them a reading of the amount of force they're producing in newtons for that muscle. So you can quantitatively look at asymmetries. You can say, hey, Joe, your right shoulder does 25 newtons of external rotation force. Your left does 50. That's why your right shoulder might hurt. Or there's pieces to the puzzle. And then when you look at rotational athletes or surfers, you typically have a dominance, right? Like if you're a regular surfer, your right hip might be stronger because you're in your back leg.
Definitely.
Goofy, maybe the opposite. So, and then why does your left hip hurt when you're asking to do other things? So like that type of approach using science to then quantify asymmetries and to really build a profile is what we're doing over there, which has been pretty fun and cool because you're actually tangibly seeing progress made. Like, hey, dude, yeah, you feel stronger, cool, but like, are you actually stronger?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
you
how
are.
is it working in your sport? Like, how do you notice a tangible difference in, like your performance?
Yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day.
For baseball guys, like they might see their velocity and their pitch increase or the speed of their throw. For basketball, it might be a jump height increase.
What's velocity compared to speed?
Velocity is basically the speed at which an object moves through time.
Okay.
Or the ability to produce a moment of force through time, I guess you want to say it that way. So like velocity could be a function of bat speed, like how fast do they swing the bat from here to here. Or how fast do they throw the baseball from the mound.
I see. Okay. So that's a little different than miles per hour when we see, he pitched it at one.
No, same thing. Same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Speed, it's kind of interchangeable in that
okay.
regard. But yeah, so that's kind of the model is like, let's create athlete profiles for their specific sport. So surfers do not train like you said, like marathon runners.
Totally different.
You have to manipulate the program variables to accommodate that person.
Yes.
And then you have to tangibly see where they're at a starting point, and then middle and then end. And every like maybe 2 to 4 appointments when we reassess some
document and reassess
to see, are we climbing the ladder or are we like dipping? Are we actually
And is that by certain testing you do that?
Yeah.
Like you're actually able to do like, okay, this, because in the same way I do that, like in the same way I document like where you were, where you're at, where you're going.
Right.
Even if we're just like I see you at the stairs quite often, if we're just running stairs on cliffs,
sure.
And I'll take someone there and we'll do 6 sets and I'm timing the split, it's interval training upstairs and I'm timing the sets, I'm timing the total time, and I'm mainly timing the rest times.
Okay.
And so I'm pushing down rest times methodically.
Sure.
So if they start out with minute between each,
Yeah.
pretty soon it's going to be 50 seconds, 45.
Yeah.
We get to 30 seconds and pretty soon they're machine.
Yeah.
And they're just like running this thing going, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you never win the stairs. The stairs always kick your ass. But, right?
I remember the first time I saw you over at the stairs in 204s, you were cranking up those things.
Barefoot.
Barefoot. Yeah.
Yeah. But a lot.
Yeah.
And then in between, I'm doing push-ups and pull-ups and
Yeah.
sit-ups and all this stuff in between each set of stairs, which exponentially changes that.
Yeah,
right?
you're always in this lactate threshold. You're always trying to clear lactate out of your cells. And once you decrease the time it takes to get that out of your cells, which is increase your performance. So what you're physiologically doing by decreasing your rest interval is you're increasing their ability to clear lactate out of the system, which then allows the muscles to contract. So the reason we can't sprint max effort for 10 hours is because lactate builds up. It decreases the pH in your blood. That down regulates the enzymes that cause the muscle contraction. It's like a cascade of
Boom,
things.
boom, boom.
So if you can decrease the lactate in the blood, you increase
Initially.
the pH, keep increasing the strength.
And that's done by performance oriented, and I would say to a certain degree how you nutrify yourself.
Yeah, and then the training
Nutrients you
methodology,
take in.
which is what you mentioned. Yeah. So.
But we like to talk about, let me ask you this. So there's a lot of discussion about how people talk about how, your fitness and your whole program is 75% your nutrition and 25% your workout.
Okay.
But you know what? I've heard that forever, and I'm always like, I'm going to go more with 50-50, at least for me. I mean, I'm thinking that no matter how good I eat, it's that the work that I do that plays such a big role too.
Yeah.
So I don't buy into that 75-25.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what you're saying. I think there's some research that talks about even if you eat horribly and smoke cigarettes or whatever, if you exercise at a high intensity multiple times a week, you actually live a lot longer than someone who just eats well and doesn't move it at all.
Thank you. Oh my God.
That's
exactly
pretty well. That's
what I
pretty
mean.
well documented. Exercise
Yes.
is like your number one return on reward or
Nice.
return on investment. Dietary things make a difference, obviously.
Yes.
But it's much better to exercise and eat poorly, probably, than to eat really well and not move at all.
God, that's just
So-
such cool information.
Yeah.
I really love that being shared on my show. I just really like to think that people would tune in to episodes and hear stuff like this. I mean, bringing you in today is really, really something that is a big thing for me. Health and fitness and training
Yeah.
has always been a part of my life. Being able to share that with people on the show, from someone with such a specific background. I mean, like we've talked about how I met you, coming off this surgery, and and over the years seeing you, like you said, running stairs or doing different things, and knowing that you're an athlete, and now you're working with. So, would you say your new practice is very much to do with the youth culture?
I would say
If you were to say percentage-wise?
it's a blend between like that 12 to 14 group of youth kids that are trying to prevent those initial growth plate injuries. It's a big market we targeted. And then we have an abundance of high school kids because these high school kids, especially in Orange County, the Trinity League, which is the league of J. Sarah, Mater Dei, Orange Lutheran, Santa Margarita, it's a private Catholic high school league.
Yeah, they're doing gnarly stuff.
And they are the number one league in baseball, basketball, and football in the country. So the best athletes in the country will move from their state, get recruited by these schools.
Yes.
It's turned into a college.
As if it's like college or pros.
100%.
Yeah.
And they're donation funds because they're private schools that pay for these high-profile athletes to live here and to go to school and to fund them.
And
et
I've
cetera.
heard there's some things going on with, tell me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's, some of these kids are like being held back.
Yeah.
And then they, like, in terms of like, they're actually 16, but they're still in like 8th grade.
Yeah. There's this huge shift and movement towards repeating 8th grade to then have an advantage as a freshman.
Bizarre.
So basically,
How's that legal?
Well, as long as you are not, I think it's 19 and a half or 20 by the time you graduate high school as a senior, in the state of California, you're okay.
Okay.
So basically, if you're an underdeveloped 14-year-old, in other words, you haven't hit puberty yet, or you haven't matured,
Yeah.
you don't have a chance as a freshman
you're
to play
done.
a sport.
Yeah.
Because all these kids are now a
Grew
year older.
bigger. Yeah.
They're a year older than you because they held back. So, and they're stronger. So you're both competing for the same position at this high-profile school.
You're losing out.
Your parents are paying them an abundance of money to make you go here.
It's like a handicap.
100%.
Yeah.
You're at a huge disadvantage. So now it's like if you don't repeat 8th grade, you're the odd man out.
Oh my God.
And they've developed prep schools. One is called the Togethership, which is a great program in San Clemente. It's really rad. It's like this massive warehouse facility up by the business park over here, where the kids go to school from it's a normal school day, but they go to school from they work out from 9 to 10, and then they go from math class from 10 to 11. And they go to speed training from 11 to 12.
Oh my God.
And then do, whatever the next academic class is, and then weight training.
Incredible.
So it's kind of like the European model where these guys are professionals at age 15.
Yes.
So we're
Yes.
creating that milieu, that environment here, but it's creating a situation where if you don't get held back and you're not really developed, you don't really have a chance.
Yeah, you're
unless you're really skilled in a
or
anomaly.
unnaturally grew big early.
Exactly.
Like
So-
in 8th grade, you
right.
were basically a He-Man.
Right.
Right.
And there's plenty of those probably.
Wow. Yeah, there is.
But the vast majority are doing this 8th grade holdback thing.
I've heard of it not just one year. I've heard times where there's like they're held
double
back.
holdback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa, this guy's like should be in 10th grade and he's in 8th grade.
For sure.
But he's on the football team. He's a star on the football team, and they're just letting him develop. And I'm like, I didn't know that was legal.
There's a guy on a basketball team in the Trinity League. I don't want to speak about him specifically, but he's 19 years old. He's a junior in
See,
high
but
school.
wouldn't that cross the lines of what we were talking
Yeah,
about?
I'm not sure. I think he's right on the day before
Yeah,
eligibility.
oh
But it's
my
like I
gosh.
graduated high school when I was 17.
Yeah.
Actually, I hadn't turned 17 yet. I turned 17 a month after I graduated.
Oh my gosh.
And I also grew late. So like me compared to this guy is
Total
it's a
handicap.
man and a boy kind of.
Yeah.
And you're playing the same court.
Interesting
And you're
stuff.
trying to get to the
yeah.
next level. It's not really.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really awesome to see that the youth taking on to sports as much as they are. I really think it has a lot to do with their parents as well. I mean, a lot of these kids aren't going to be, that aware at that early to know about, injury prevention and all this stuff. But collectively, I feel like there's obviously this big awareness, and especially where we live, it's a very healthy lifestyle place where people are all over it. So you've positioned yourself very nicely right in the center of that, and training, from what I understand, different teams. And
we got contracts with a couple different high school teams in the area that basically allow us to do their programming for them. So like if you're a baseball player, and, you probably shouldn't be lifting like a football player.
Yeah,
it's a different demands. And so unfortunately with the public school system is that one weight coach to 50 guys in the same room. And youth kids don't know what they're doing. Like you have a back squat, and a kid's 14, he's never done it before. He's got the pressure of his peers trying to get up, dude, get more weight.
Yeah.
And then you have these injuries that happen, and the parents are seeing that. And so our model is basically like, let's get ahead of this. Let's lift appropriately. Let's learn how to move better. And then in turn, that will improve your athleticism and hopefully keep you on the field. Because the other thing about injuries in youth sports is that affects their brain massively. Like if you identify as a basketball player as a young kid, and that's like your main identity, and you take that away because you have a knee injury, you kind of go down this like spiral of depression and like emotional withdrawal,
Totally.
So that aspect of it is actually probably the most impactful, is keeping them as part of their identity as a young person.
Yeah, building their esteem, their self-confidence, their pride, their dignity, and their direction in life. Because done wrong, that can really send them down a path. I mean, I can relate to that even in high school. I had this coach, I just had really bushy long hair, and I didn't want to cut it, and he was from the Marines, and we just didn't vibe. But he, it was up to me. I was just not going to have someone tell me how to look, which probably was a mistake in the big picture. But at the same time, I felt like it was kind of like this weird, like Nazi control vibe. It was like, wait a second, you're not here to like dress my personal style.
Yeah.
And of course, now we see in football, people have dreads out there.
Yeah.
I mean, but at the time, that seemed very offensive to me. And we basically got it almost, we beefed a lot over it. But, I feel like to keep the kids on track is such a thing, and the coaches and the vibe and the trainers and the whole thing. So I think what's good is, from what I hear, you're able to like get in and really kind of influence their strategic ideology of how they're going to approach to become a pro one day.
Yeah.
I mean, if some of these kids just want to play ball because they're having fun, I mean, at one stage it's like, well, those kids are like, whatever. But by high school, even junior high school now, it's like, it's same in surfing. It's like, this stuff's getting real early. And they're coming in hot, and they want to be pros, and they're training early because it's a very competitive reality.
Yeah, you've got kids homeschooling to surf. I mean, the first time I went to T Street, I was like, what is going on? There's 15 kids that are 10 to 12 out here in the middle of the day. What's going on? Like, where are we?
We thought we'd be able to go out and surf by ourselves, and the kids are all over.
Right. So that was the first time I was introduced to that culture. It was like, wow, we got kids homeschooling to surf.
Big time.
Pretty rad in one way, but the side of that is like, what is that? How does that affect their like
social
growth
skills?
Yeah, massively, right? Like,
I hate to say that, but I've seen some of this, in a first-hand way.
It's a trickle effect, man, I think.
Like they're just kind of whatever. It can turn out really well. It depends on who's homeschooling them and whatever, but there's something to be said for being in school and actually learning how to get along with others, sharing a class with 30 people, asking questions, listening to other questions, getting the benefit of that group. Being uncomfortable, like learning how to sit still for a second. But it's very different environment than when I grew up, man. Like I grew up and it was not that way at all. Not at all.
There's no holdbacks really. It was like, you're going to be a student, and most likely you're not being a pro, but good luck to you if you are. Now it's like expectations to be a high level athlete.
Huge. And in surfing, that's going on in a big way. I mean, we can mention names right out of the gate right now of kids that are just, coming up hot, through those ranks in a sense, right? If I was just to say what I think the maybe some of the pro side of homeschooling is, I think that it probably teaches someone a fair amount of self-reliant discipline to do their schooling. And so they don't become such a group-oriented and can't function outside the group. I think there would be a great balance if they could achieve, some in school.
Right. Maybe
mixed with lots of homeschooling, but would be a blend.
Like a 2-day a week in campus, 3 days by yourself.
That would be great.
I
think that you would still get that. You'd be able to go to the prom. You'd be able to go to dances or just be involved in that high school stuff. Which I think, looking back, I think that's
good memories to have, right? I mean,
it is.
Some of your best times could have been with your boys in high school, or like some of those parties, or whatever it is. Like
there's something to be said that's not on a grade of a paper.
Totally.
I would say let's just call it sociology. in a sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you wonder nowadays, these kids, if they're really developing their social skills between that and also their phones and just the social media and the whole thing. It's
Dude, there's some kids that come to my practice who cannot look me in the eyes and talk to me. They have to be, they're very socially distraught when it comes to like confrontation or even just a conversation.
just communicating.
And then you have the extreme where kids can't pay attention for 1 minute because they're too busy talking about their entire day. So like it's a wide variety, but I would say there's a trend towards like kids who have a hard time communicating.
I agree.
And there might have been the COVID part of it where like kids were condemned to a room, right?
Yeah.
They were taken out of school.
Definitely.
And then you have this influx in technology where they depend on that.
Yep.
You have immediate gratification.
Yeah.
So it's like,
There's a lot of that. I see it in the gym. I run into these kids. I talk to a lot of kids, a lot of them come up and want to know what I'm doing or whatever and talk. As you know, I'm reasonably social. I like to talk to people and check in and see what they're into. And, people see the sets I'm doing or whatever and just kind of like I do different stuff that's influenced by other, not just weight training.
Sure.
And so I'll just be doing a wall sit and they'll be walking by and like, minutes later they're going, dude, what are you like still sitting there? What, and I go, yeah, why don't you, give it a shot? And then like 30 seconds later, they're sitting there going, oh my God, you know? So it gives me a window into these kids and to talk to them and kind of help them out a little bit, give them little clues about, what are you looking forward to do? And I've actually done that a lot. Never charge any of them. I just talk with them and show them some stuff.
That's cool.
But I have noticed that, I don't want to say they, but to some degree, a certain percentage of them have a very difficult time with everything you said. They don't have great eye contact. They don't seem to like settle into a conversation very well. They're looking at their phone real quick. They get real anxiety. They just have issues with that. It's not really their fault, but it's society as well. But I think their parents could have said, hey, do all your chores and you get your phone for an hour a night. Like they're just so onto their phone, and the parents let the phone kind of be their little buddy. And then they become these like androids or whatever. It's weird. But as it relates to sports, the good thing about sports is that you can't play your sport with your phone in your hand.
Right.
So you've got to click into a really, really dynamic space of, athleticism. And I think from that, we see some pretty amazing potential nowadays. I know in the surf world, there's some young up and coming talent we're seeing the benefits of some of this new level of ideology with nutrition and training and techniques. And we're seeing some young kids come on the scene and be like, and I'm sure that's true in all sports.
For sure. I mean, out here in San Clemente, like I remember the first time I went to T Street and Lowers, I've seen kids throw like 360 airs and like just crazy tricks. And I'm like, what the heck? They're 8 years old.
Exactly.
Like what's happening? I've never seen this before. I've never seen this before. I can't do that. Like what the hell? Because
they grew up looking at, Kolohe Dino and Griffin Cole, the now generation of
progressive, like
they're like at the beach going, man, whoa,
right.
Whereas those kids grew up and looked at the generation before them and they were kind of doing some radical stuff. But really, at a certain point, surfing especially was kind of like a party. It was considered like more of a party circuit, and you surfed and had fun, and like it really became a thing where now you are training, you are eating good, you are sleeping good, you are not doing that, you are not placing high, you are competing against people that take it very serious. And once that became the new paradigm, then everyone either they want to be a pro or they don't, and you can't go do what that used to be. Right. So now these kids are influenced by that. So
it's a trickle down effect, right? Like it's
full
like
trickle down.
Fully taking a sport that was once looked at as like an activity and a culture, turning into a professional, like competitive sport.
Full on.
And the methodology changes and the approach changes. And I think that's why some kids get burnt out of that, because like the competition lifestyle for surfing, in a way, takes the fun out of the sport itself. You probably see that a lot of kids.
I do. They burn out.
You just, like the enjoyment of something that's so natural turns into something you have to do and compete with somebody that you don't necessarily want to compete. Like, there's an element of surfing where it's like, yeah, man, take that wave. You're good. Versus like in the competition circuit, it's like, no, that's mine. I'm taking that and I'm scoring over you.
It's very aggressive.
It changes like that whole like kind of mentality towards something like that.
And I think the other thing that makes surfing tough and tough on anyone is the fact that it's not a finite win.
Sure.
You all stand on a line to run the 100-yard dash. It's not who's most popular. It's not who's anything. It's who crosses the line first, and that's it.
Right.
There's no politics. It's not a judged sport.
Sure.
Right? And that's true of a lot of sports, but I would say the other would be like fighting.
Boxing.
Boxing, wrestling, UFC.
Yeah. There's like a qualitative approach.
Gymnastics.
Like you have judges on a panel creating a quality of movement and then quantitating that. So like, hey, this is what we think they did. This is the number we associate with that.
Yeah.
Versus basketball, they made 98 points. They made 96. They won.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a finite aspect to winning.
Right.
Whereas like the other ones we're talking about have this like judged kind of,
Like
opinionated,
subjective,
very subjective.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, right.
This is what makes surfing even more so than that is the apparatus itself. So if it's boxing, you're all in the same ring with the same ounce gloves. If it's gymnastics, you're on the same high bar. But in surfing, the tide shifted, it got windy, no waves came your way.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot of variables so you have the aspect of being judged, and then you have the aspect of the fact that the apparatus itself.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of discussion about, like, right now, every year on tour for the last few years, there's been one contest where it was in a wave pool. And I just want to say it makes it like a skate park, right? Because everyone gets the same half bowl.
Sure.
Whereas in surfing out in the ocean, it's just constantly changing. The double-edged sword of that is that you watch these contests in wave pools, and I mean, I got to tell you, it's really boring for me to watch. It's just, there's no hunt.
Yeah.
There's no, oh my God, he got a set wave. Oh, the tide went high. How's he going to, like, there's no variance.
Yeah.
But in that same way, well, we all get the same amount of waves, and they're exactly the same waves. So you're guaranteed the waves you're going to get your points.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it creates that validity, but on the other side of it, you take away the hunt.
Yeah. And I think,
and the magic.
Right. That's a great thing you bring up. I was looking at that the other day, thinking about like how surfing is practiced is way different than other sports. Because like basketball, you have a net, you have a rim, you have a free throw line. You're gonna go shoot 100 set free throws.
Guaranteed.
With surfing, you may go surf for 4 hours, and you may get 3 waves.
Yes.
They may go another day and surf for 1 hour, and may get 15.
It's like so weird like that. Yeah.
That's where the scalability or the improvements in surfing is hard for some people because they don't get the amount of volume. So like when you look at skill acquisition, typically skill acquisition is a function of how much hours of time and how many repetitions of that same task. Where surfing, it's probably just overall being in the water and getting a bunch of shit thrown at you and how you adapt to each one.
Adaptability is big with surfing.
Yeah, can you get on a shitty wave that's breaking on your head and then make the best of it? Or can you ride a perfect wave only,
And there's something like wave instinct. There's just something that some people have. And I want to say the one that I know is just incredible like this is Tom Curran. Just somehow was like a wave magnet. Like the guy could just will waves to himself. A lot of people think Kelly Slater kind of had that. It's like what they're tapped. Like so the thing that was cool about surfing is it kind of creates this hunter. So you're out in a heat. Unlike any other sport, you don't really have to go hunt. As much. You're paddling over here. I feel like you're reading the waves coming in. You paddle over here, whatever. Or you're going to sit there. A lot of strategy stuff, but a lot of instinct stuff. So the one beautiful thing about it is that you are a hunter, but then with the, and that we see the spoils of that.
Yeah.
Then of course, no matter what, you get the wave, you got to perform.
Right.
But no matter what, also, there's a little bit of that, like, well, there's a panel of judges. And I don't know, but I just think humans might be subject, like we say, it's subjective to whether they like this person or not. I mean, I don't know. We don't have fact around that, but I've seen times where I felt like someone was kind of controversial or they didn't do a lot of ass kissing or they weren't that social.
Yeah.
And you'd think, wow, I feel like that score was not really standard with what I've seen. Yeah. Like it's hard to quantify.
Yeah.
So,
and the popularity of the surfer is very influential in there. And you kind of look at you can extrapolate that to like MMA or like wrestling. Like, like the WWE or like the MMA Federation will like kind of make people in a position to win because we know that might generate more revenue because their faces on the card or like
100%. Kelly Slater's in a contest, it brings more people to the venue,
massively,
right? If he's not in the contest, we lose 100,000. We don't know the numbers, but he's a big draw.
Yeah.
So you would think, well, yeah, they want to push people into the final that might make a big final on Saturday or Sunday with everyone showing up, going, oh my God! Back in the day, it would be like Aki against Curran in the final at the OP Pro. You'd be like, oh, the whole beach would be going crazy. But if it was some no-name kid that, when Nicky Wood came out of nowhere and won at like 16, I mean, that was cool in that way, but who knew who he was? Right. So we don't know, but we always feel a little suspicious of it. Is this really pure?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The idea that I have for surfing is, I've discussed with everyone I know that's in the pro aspect of it, is I think that the judges have too much information. So I think when they sit in their booths and they're able to look at a wave knowing that you need a 6.5, I think if they didn't know you need a 6.5, their judging would be pure.
I didn't know they knew the prerequisite score because, yeah, it makes sense. They have all the numbers they need
They have
to
all the
pass
data
on.
in front of them. So there's 18 minutes left in the heat, and they know you need a 6.5. But maybe, you were talking to this girl that they had a crush on
Yeah.
2 nights ago at the event.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm just throwing it out there, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe that guy's got a little bit of a this guy gets all the girls, and I'm over here judging. I'm just saying, whatever it could be. Maybe the guy doesn't say hi very much.
Yeah.
There's people that aren't that friendly and social. They're just as nice. They're just a little more shy.
Totally.
Some people are really just good at I think using Kelly Slater, I think he's a great example of kind of everything.
Yeah.
He's articulate. He's smart. He's engaging. He's good looking.
Yeah.
He's
super likable guy.
incredibly talented.
Yeah. Super likable.
Super likable guy. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, no surprise that, he's kind of a darling of the media. Not taking anything away from him. He's totally
specimen.
the absolute GOAT.
Yeah.
But just saying, then there's other people like, say, Dane Reynolds comes to mind. Incredibly talented, right? But just not a consummate pro in that way. More of a wild child, a little bit more of a move to the beat of his own drum. Doesn't really care if he gets out of a heat. Just wants to go out and blow minds. And quite honestly, he's one of the most exciting surfers you can watch. But, really never made that huge of a mark in pro surfing. But everyone knows he's as good as it gets. He's one of the best surfers in the world.
He might be one of those guys that got into the competition circuit and was like, this is just overwhelming. It's taking the fun out of what I like to do.
100%.
Just go to random beaches and throw massive airs.
And everyone go, whoa, and then shoot video because his whole life is, you watch his videos. Oh, my God, right? So that's what's good, what you don't get in, say, baseball or basketball. There's not going to be any videos of some guy that almost should have went pro, but he's just so colorful and cool that you're going to see his – like these guys make a living at doing this. Jamie O'Brien, Dane Reynolds, Mason Ho, quite a few guys over the years have been those guys.
Yeah.
What a beautiful way to go make a living, to just be kind of a wild child free spirit and put videos out and then maybe start a clothing brand like Dane Reynolds has so much stuff. Excuse me. And like, so that's what surfing has, such a beautiful element to it. But then coming back to the absolute, there's a lot of respect to qualify for the World Tour.
Yeah.
Here coming from our hometown of San Clemente. I mean, what was it last year? We had 5 people on tour. We had 4 men out of 32.
Yeah.
That's like what's in the water here, right?
Yeah.
But it's a lot what you're saying. We grew up in an environment where we really promoted, this is like if you grow up in Aspen, you're going to be skiing or snowboarding. Right. You come in San Clemente and you don't surf, it's a little bit like, well, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
But
you're an all ball out if you don't grow up.
Yeah. I mean, you're in the water. Now we got these. So we have all this talent coming out of here. I think, I've been able to be a part of a lot of their lives and enjoy the journey of seeing them. Like right now, Cole Houshman is on tour for his 2nd year, and him among many others, but he was training with me when he was like 12.
Yeah, I've worked with Cole a couple times too. He's a great guy.
Really cool guy.
His progression and his like massive change in intensity and skill in the last like 3 years has been wild to watch that.
Oh my
guy's
gosh.
powerful as hell.
Blew up, and he's like the
He could be
biggest
like
guy on tour.
He could be a football player, dude.
Yeah, he could be a football player.
He's like legit jacked.
He's a big kid.
Yeah, powerful guy.
Really powerful and really nice and just really driven.
Yeah.
I give him that. I don't think necessarily when he was coming up, he was in the first, he was definitely there. But I think there was names that might have been considered a little more in front of him, and then look where he is.
Yeah, really emerged.
Really emerged, kept going, kept training, kept, really kept at it.
Yeah.
I think there's not any party in that. There's just full-blown focus. And I've seen that kind of that humble but pretty driven look in his eyes. I could see that he's, and then what did he do in first year on tour? He won bells.
Yeah, no, crushed it. He's got a great trainer. He's actually a physical therapist. I believe his name is Corey. Could be wrong. Could double check that. But he works with him. I see him on Instagram all the time. Like they're doing high quality work. So like he's one of those guys that like he puts the effort in the weight training room.
Yes.
And that translates directly to sport. Clearly,
his power is just
so like shout out to those guys. Like they're putting. You can check their social media. You'll see them doing pretty cool lifts and challenging things. And I think that is what's missed on like a lot of these guys, that they don't take it as seriously.
They don't take it quite as serious.
Maybe not.
I think they do, but I think a lot of them see time in the water.
Yeah.
They see time in the water as, I mean, obviously that's important, but I feel like some of them kind of undervalue the time out of the water as like, I mean, I think they do it, but I think the guys who really excel, like I know Kalohe and Dino, put a lot of time into training, you know, like a lot of time into training.
Yeah.
You know, he was like, I think top 10 first year, top 5. I mean, like he really did good for quite a few years, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know what he's doing now. I think he's, you know, he's 30, he's just turned 31. And I know he's got his third kid on the way.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, I think there's a chance he might come after requalifying. I think he's got the skill. I know he's got the passion. It's just, you know, what decision he's going to make at one point to really go after that. Because requalifying, once you're on tour, is got to be a little bit of a you know, just a space you got to get into. But I mean, there's some people on right now that have been on tour and have requalified. Requalifying is a thing. So yeah, it's just really cool. So let me ask you this. I think I've heard somewhere along the line that's some stuff going on in your personal life that maybe I could ask you about.
Yeah, man. Let's see. I got engaged last January. Great.
Congratulations.
Great Brazilian. Thank you, man. Great Brazilian woman. She grew up in Orange County, so she is California-ized, like from America, really. But Brazilian culture, man. Speaking of San Clemente and Brazilian culture, like there's so many Brazilians in San Clemente.
There really is,
and it's quite cool to see the other side of things. Like I went to Brazil last July.
What part?
Vitoria, which is like a small island outside of Sao Paulo. It's like an hour. It's kind of almost like if San Clemente and Dana Point were connected by a bridge rather than PCH.
That was anywhere related to Florianopolis?
It's like I don't know. It's like an hour from Sao Paulo. That's all I got for you.
Wow. Okay.
It's a really cool like upscale beach community.
Cool.
And her grandparents and her parents are from there, so we went to go visit the hometown. And the crazy cultural difference in Brazil is like if you either are like up in the hills in the favelas or like you have money, you live comfortably. Like there's no in between.
There's not a middle class.
Zero.
It's rich or poor.
It's massively rich or massively poor.
And
typically.
on the beach, living just this beautiful life in the favelas, and it's sketch. You know, it's a gnarly situation.
So it was great for me to see that cultural difference, and like because her dad came from a lower income place and worked really hard and tangibly to get to a higher level. So to see
Incredible.
it doesn't happen commonly there. Typically, if you're in a social class, like you're stuck.
You're stuck. I mean, but he just busted
just
through
super
it
smart,
with so
like
much will.
PhD in electrical engineering, invented some of the technology in this Apple Watch here.
Wow.
A lot of patents that we use on a daily basis. Super smart guy. So to see that like growth was pretty cool. It makes it relatable for me because I don't come from a big background of money. So to put the time in to get to where you want to get to. We got engaged in January. We're planning a wedding next May in Brazil.
So not this coming May?
Right. So in a year from May.
Yeah, something like 13 or 14 months from now.
Yeah.
And that you guys will get married in Brazil?
In Brazil, yeah.
Cool.
On their
on that island?
Yeah, their uncle has like a really cool property where the upstairs rooftop is like a venue.
Okay.
It's like a building, but they offer that.
Okay.
It overlooks massive ocean look and ocean view, and so it'll be exciting and cool.
Once again, congratulations on your
Appreciate that,
engagement.
Man. Yeah, thank you very much.
And on your business that you're doing. And
appreciate you.
I got to say, man, thanks for coming in, Kyle.
Appreciate you guys so much, man. It's been great. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, there we are. Another episode of Talk to the Doctor. Springtime, good times. Now let's get out and have some fun. Go enjoy your day. Peace.